And so then the immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, not very far from where I'm at, right? It's a large, was it Haitians? Largely Haitians who were coming in.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a government funded thing. And it was kind of dumb in the sense that they brought over a lot of people and put them in one place. Right. And so it was harder for them to sort of integrate into society. So you can kind of say, okay, well, that was a dumb government thing. But largely what people that I know from Springfield and people who've talked to people in Springfield, the people who are kind of there already, one of the things they'll complain about is well, a lot of them are driving without driver's licenses, and that's not great. But apart from that, there's not the hostility that you would think was there based on, what Trump going out in the debate stage and saying they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats.
Yeah.
That wasn't really the way people in Springfield felt about it.
But I do wonder though, for every example of that, and this is tough because I'm not there. I haven't been there, right? As the saying goes. But you do hear stories about stuff in Europe with the massive influx of Muslim immigrants, and this is this tough thing where I don't want to make the ethno-nationalist point for them because they have this very deterministic view of race and culture and whatnot, which I think is unscientific, unchristian, and hateful and bigoted. But I also think it'd be naive to say that people from different countries and cultures that often, I think it's more just it's a correlation, right? Their skin color and race happen to be different, but it's not baked into their genetics that they have this culture or this mindset. But it's just they will have different values, and so I think that the issue for a lot of people is that they see the state inviting people in and then saying we're all part of this democratic system, but then that's going to create this kind of moral political hazard where we don't all have the same values. And I do think that is one of the more, at least legitimate concerns about the open borders program is if we bring so many people here from different places that have different values than us, and I know that you can't just come here and automatically vote, but there is such things as voter fraud and people having children here, and then those children become citizens and they vote. And so it's not as there's a cartoonish version of this argument that I think is kind of silly, but I think there is a legitimate concern there that it maybe doesn't happen as instantaneously as some people make it out to be, but it does create some concerns about is what it means to be an American, is the people caring about the Constitution and adhering to an originalist interpretation of it, and believing in the Bill of Rights and all this stuff. Is that going to be preserved if we have open borders and all these people coming here and whatnot? Especially as we're, it's not just we open the borders and then see what happens. It does seem, even to me, that both intentionally and unintentionally, the state is sort of ramping up that process, right? It's not totally just a free market, millions of people just decided at once to come here. A lot of them are sadly refugees and either from war-torn countries or countries where, there's been complete political destabilization and whatnot. And I strongly hate the dehumanization of a lot of these people and this sort of blanket, there are some gang members and some criminals and whatnot in that calculus, but people tend to play, especially, ICE and the law enforcement right now are playing rather fast and loose with, actually, they're not even playing fast and loose with making the determinations. They're just not making determinations because they said, well, due process, what's that, right? So,
right. Well, that's the irony, right? They're going to come here and they're going to change our values and they're not going to believe the Constitution. So let's throw away the Constitution.
Right. No, the irony is not lost on me, which is why I'm simultaneously raging against both sides because I'm just it's like that Family Guy meme where it's kids, you just, you're both awful.
or I thought of the Muhammad Ali thing about, he wasn't going to go fight the Viet Cong because the Viet Cong never called him the N-word. It's Mexican never tried to take away my freedom. You do. And so,
right.
Yeah, I will say there is something different going on in Europe because Europe really is a welfare state. And I think when you look at, this history of immigration, when people say we're a nation of immigrants, and the melting pot, there's really something to that. And we don't think about it much because we focus kind of more on the first generation, the people who come here maybe don't speak great English or whatever. And we kind of ignored the fact that we're all mutts, right? And so, I think we have this sort of history of people coming here and getting it, and getting the American dream and understanding it, and having to stand up on their own 2 feet, which means they have to get along with their neighbors. They have to work in their communities where they live. And I think what Europe allows is, this kind of ghettoization where you can sort of come here and just take money and never really become integrated into society in any meaningful way. And so, yeah, I think there are some real dangers in Europe. And as far as like the voting thing, like obviously as anarchists and libertarians, we would sort of say, yeah, well, maybe you shouldn't let people's freedom be decided by votes. and that's part one. But then also like too, like this is like always like just kind of amazed me a little bit when people on the right are like saying, oh, they're trying to sneak Mexicans over here and immigrants so they can because they'll vote for them. It's like, well, why will they vote for them? It's like, well, because they don't, they're not racist. And it's like, well, a lot of these people from Cuba are conservative. A lot of people coming from like, sort of more like Muslim countries even.
Oh yeah.
Are going to be very.
There was a big turnout of Hispanics and Puerto Ricans and other, for Trump.
For Trump.
So
and that amazed me because, I mean, he was pretty hardcore. like I felt like if anybody's not going to vote for this guy, it's got to be like Hispanics, right? But
there's Stockholm syndrome going on there.
Yeah. Well, I've got a few friends who are kind of second, third generation immigrants, and they're very anti illegals, right? They sort of have a sense of like I got in here the right way, or my grandparents did, or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah. So but yeah, I mean, to me, like the right is telling on themselves a little bit, like when they say like there's all these people who come in who have these conservative values who should be voting for us, but they're not. They're voting for the other party. Well, why is that? Like these are people
because they're not white, Cody. No, I mean, but that like literally, there's people saying that, and I'm just like I don't know. Again, and we should wrap up here, but like it's like I feel like I'm getting punked. I'm like, because I've for years been saying, I'm a '90s kid. I was like, racism's a thing of the past, and then it's just like, then all of a sudden it's just like the right wing said, hold my beer. You think racism is the thing of the past? Like. That's
right.
why I'm toying around making the title of this episode provocatively, like making racism great again. Like that,
Oh, wow.
it almost seems to be what the theme is lately.